Welcome to the Movie Business Podcast, picking up where Movie Business Book left off. I'm Jason Squire, hosting a wide range of industry talent and executives to answer fundamental questions about the business today. Here we go. And today we're getting into the mystical arena of marketing, specifically with Grady Miller, Chief Marketing Officer of NRG, National Research Group. After serving as head of consumer insights for Apple TV Plus, where he established and built the group responsible for leveraging consumer insights across the streaming subscription service. Previously, he was Vice President of Strategy at NRG, after working in production at Sony Pictures Entertainment and at research agency Penn Schoen Berland. Also, he served on the board of Los Angeles World Affairs Council and the American Jewish World Service. Welcome, Grady.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Well, I'm glad you're here because the whole area that you're involved in at National Research Group is not very well known, so it's an opportunity to really get into it. What are the secrets of NRG?
Great question. Sometimes I think, what aren't the secrets of NRG? There was an article written about our firm in the early aughts that described it as Hollywood's secret weapon. And it really encapsulated what NRG has been known for its more than 45-year history, really historically working behind the scenes. And I agree, it's something they really don't teach us in film school, despite going to a great film school with great professors. But it's just how integral research, data, and analytics is into making this creative business that we work in more successful and sometimes less risky when you're making such big bets. So as I've learned going through this throughout my career, it is a real lifeblood to the industry and something that sits behind a lot of the decisions that are being made in the theatrical space and the streaming space and the television space and beyond.
Is there a secret sauce that you really didn't know about before you really dived into this part of the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the having people, strategists, consultants, researchers who live and breathe the industries that they serve. I think that's something that makes NRG quite unique and some of the other agencies in our space, is people are so passionate about the space and the industry we serve and our creative minds at heart, and trying to blend that creativity with the data and insights that we gather to help make informed decisions. I think that one thing that I always have described to my clients and colleagues when I've been working on the studio or streamer side is that research and market research is far from the death of creativity, and instead have always strived to show how it can enhance creativity, help understand the audience, help make creative decisions, whether that's in the content or in the marketing. And that sort of intersection is really where I think that this is the secret sauce of how we succeed and how we help our clients on the studio and streaming side and television side succeed.
Very good. We'll be focusing on entertainment mostly, but I want to ask you to review the range of services and industries that NRG provides.
Yeah, so NRG, as I said, has a pretty deep legacy in the Hollywood space. We were founded more than 45 years ago by Joe Farrell and Catherine Porra, who came to LA from the political polling sphere, and really were applying some of those sort of best practices of how you convince people to vote for candidates to the Hollywood theatrical space, where every weekend is an election. So, we have a real deep legacy of pioneering many of the methodologies that are relied upon today and are applied across the business. But after our firm was acquired by Stagwell Group in the end of 2015, we've really diversified and moved into new spaces that are adjacent and sort of at that intersection of content, technology, and culture. So we work quite a bit in the video game industry, We work with sports, whether that's rights holders or the leagues and teams themselves. We do a lot of work in the creator and influencer space with the platforms and brands that are working with creators on those platforms. And then the other big part of our business that has emerged where we've applied some of the great storytelling techniques and creative research techniques that we use in the Hollywood space to the tech space. So working with all the big tech giants. So yeah, we've worked with many of the biggest tech giants in the industry that have recently been entering the Hollywood and entertainment space in recent years.
That's a huge portfolio, sir. That's a lot of stuff going on. Now, let's get further into entertainment. What are the most popular services, and why would clients choose NRG?
So, our theatrical tracking is really the industry standard for understanding some of the effectiveness of movie campaigns and, of course, predicting box office performance. And this is a program and tool that we've been operating continuously since the 1980s and is very much the currency in the industry. So that's something that is quite popular, and the studios across the board are partners with us there. And certainly something that sets NRG apart from the other agencies in the space. And one thing that's been really interesting is we've been able to expand some of our syndicated tools into some other really popular offerings in the streaming space, tracking streaming marketing campaigns, as well as linear marketing campaigns in the lead up to the launch of new titles. We also run a franchise tracking program that's very effective and popular across the entertainment and gaming space, where we're tracking 1,300 franchises every week in the US and in 12 other key markets around the world. And that is something that is used for making decisions around brand extensions and the brand health of franchises in a transmedia format, things that live across many different formats. So those are some of the sort of expanded tool sets that have really been born out of our theatrical tracking legacy, which clients are using every day now. And then we also work in the custom space. And this is in entertainment, we work across the entire content lifecycle. So this could be from the very beginning, gestational phase of a title, whether it's a streaming title or a theatrical title or a television title, helping make the decision of a go, no go, green light decision by speaking with consumers about their attitudes towards the property, towards the idea. One of our really special bread and butter techniques is script-based positioning and messaging research here at NRG, where we take the script and distill it down into a really compelling narrative and put that in front of audiences to evaluate how interested they are in the story, and then identify unique ways of marketing it, different positioning statements that could really isolate the ways that you might cut a trailer and the ultimate TV spots to sell that title when the time comes. So really early stage strategic work to lay the foundation for the marketing campaign that will follow. And then as we go through the entire content lifecycle, creative testing with trailers and spots and promos. Of course, the classic, test screening, content testing. So nowadays that's done both in person at theaters, at testing sites, but also quite a bit online, especially in the post-COVID era, testing movies and shows with an online audience around the country and around the world. And then, of course, ending that all, especially in the theatrical space, with post-release studies, understanding what worked and didn't work about the title, what drew people to the theaters or drew people to watch it on their favorite streaming service, and exits of who came and why to see the film. So that's kind of the menu, if you will, of the things that I think NRG does especially well and uniquely in this entertainment space.
Well, wow, it's really amazing. Let me turn to it seems like it requires a lot of tact regarding test screenings, where you're there and there are the creators on one side, arguably, and management on the other side, management that's paying your company. Might take a lot of tact and diplomacy to really to interface with these characters. Is that right?
Absolutely.
You have a degree. You have a degree in diplomatic, the advanced degree. Is that it?
You've definitely been talking to my mother-in-law, who always is describing me as diplomatic in all my interactions with her. Well, yes, it is definitely an opportunity for tact and grace, and knowing when to insert yourself into the creative process. I've spent myself time in the back rooms, counting rooms, as we used to call them, where, in the projection booth where you're counting cards to understand the scores from the test screening to give the filmmaker an immediate sense of the performance of the title against past normative data for similar genres. And, it's a tense experience. Obviously, filmmakers have spent many years of their life often preparing for this moment when their film is in front of an audience for the first time, and are trepidatious about, what are the suits from the market research going to say about the performance of their title. And it certainly is something we take seriously in terms of honoring that craft and that art, but trying to help them connect with audiences and the greatest audience potential that their film or show has. So certainly very delicate, but I found, even working with very high profile filmmakers and showrunners over the years, that they really do appreciate that honest feedback and that sort of counsel that we provide. We're really not just delivering results and numbers, but we're cutting through to contextualize that and help guide them about what might be an action they could take based upon the results that have come back from any particular test.
Wow. And this does dovetail to the next question about throughout your career. What have been the lessons that you've learned?
Well, there's certainly been many. One thing that comes to mind is, as we've sort of entered into this new era of the entertainment business that's driven by so many technological advances in the delivery of content led by the streaming boom, you'd think with all this big data and thousands of customers generating lots of, minute data about every interaction they're having with the platform, that, maybe there isn't a place for market research and some of these tried and true methods. Instead, that maybe you could derive a lot of insight from the actual actions and behaviors of people on platforms and in other digital experiences. But what we found is that there's just so much value in many of the methods we deploy, and definitely the deep strategic counsel we provide that you can't get from just crunching some of the big data, although that is a valuable counterpoint to much of what we gather. You really still need market research to kind of peel back the curtain on the why behind a lot of the audience choices and behaviors. I like to say, we're kind of peeking inside the hearts and minds of people in a way that is really impossible to do without directly asking them in many of the ways that we do in surveys and focus groups and other interventions. So yeah, that to me has been a lesson as I've gone through the business, working both on the theatrical side, on the streaming side, and seeing that interplay of big data with the more traditional consumer insights that we really specialize in.
Let me turn to another question going back to streaming and analyzing streaming results. There doesn't seem to be that there's been a whole effort of different companies to try to provide useful data for analysts and the streamers themselves, and especially the production partners, meaning the talent and their representatives, in order to monetize the results of streaming success. There doesn't seem to be anything that has been the equivalent of TV ratings, for instance, in the past, or grosses for theatrical. Are we heading towards something reliable that can really indicate how much money represents success in different streaming movies and series?
I believe so. There's been a number of attempts in this direction of finding effective ways of measurement that are available to all parties in sort of the negotiating equation. But as you note, it really hasn't yet taken hold. And I think part of that is that there's been a number of different walled gardens within the streaming space and hard to draw effective parallels across them entirely.
Right.
Although I think there are some some players in the space who have started to do that. And in fact, the traditional ratings pioneer Nielsen has their Gauge, which is one of the effective measurement tools from my point of view. The reason I say I think it's coming is because I feel it has to, with the growth of ad-supported tiers and sort of this blending between the broadcast experience, where you're delivering shows with a broadcast style and in a linear format, of course, ad-supported, with many of the either day and date or next day airing opportunities on their sister streaming platforms that audiences are now choosing to more and more for that value proposition to select the ad-supported model. And with that comes the need for more measurement and transparency. So I just think that there's going to be some market forces that kind of drive us in the direction of more uniform, equitable measurement across the space in the years to come.
Well, that'll be very healthy and most welcome for any of us who want to make sense of the dollar equivalent of performance of streaming content. As you say, with the success of ad-supported tiers, that seems to be a logical basis on which to make this new analysis, which I sure hope is coming down the pike.
Yes.
So let me ask another general question. What advice do you have for companies in terms of dealing with market research?
Great question. I think it's very much about partnership, and we try to embrace all of our relationships from that perspective. We're always trying to identify the right technique to deploy at the right time. And that's, I think, the more partnership and transparency that companies working with market research agencies can provide, the better we can serve them and find the appropriate methodology that might make sense for their strategic question. So we find that, those partners who we have really deep, long relationships with that can kind of share with us some of their strategic challenges, what the core key question they're trying to answer, it always makes the work more effective when we have that sort of North Star to guide us, as opposed to just ordering something, so to speak, off the shelf and without quite the sense of exactly what kind of decisions it's going to inform, what kind of stakeholders across the organization might be using that data to make those decisions. The more transparency that's able to be provided, I think, always makes the research much richer.
Well, that's helpful advice, and thank you. Let me finally ask, what is your prognosis for the business? Where are we all heading?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I feel like as many people watching the space would probably agree, it's fragmented and fractured as much as it ever was or ever could be. I think that, it is becoming more and more challenging to get attention. Attention is something that we really think a lot about, whether it's around personalities and celebrities or around marketing campaigns. With all of the content at our fingertips, even so much in back catalogs and libraries, it's harder than ever to break through. We think that one of those things that continues to be a difference maker and will be for the next few years in the streaming space is certainly this arms race around sports rights that drive value proposition for streaming platforms and are unique points of difference that still have this draw that audiences are looking for when they're making their decision about staying with a streaming service or subscribing to a streaming service. So that definitely feels like a battleground for the future. Another interesting prognosis, as I mentioned, we work in the video game space, and we really see that line between Hollywood and the video game industry blurring. We put out a paper last year around transmedia opportunities and video game adaptations, and really feel like we're at an inflection point there that really feels like these are the next frontier of franchise building, in a bit of a post-superhero world. And I think that there's also a lot of potential with the crossover experiences that younger audiences are looking for in platforms like Roblox and Minecraft. And how do we blend the stories that appear on the big and small screen with those that appear in those interactive formats? So it's really an exciting time to kind of be at that intersection. And of course, I would be remiss without saying that there's certainly a lot of impacts from artificial intelligence in our future. I think that it's going to become somewhat of a style of content creation in and of itself, not just to drive down costs, but because it has its own unique sort of style in the way that user-generated content is its own experience that's quite distinct from professionally generated TV shows and movies. So it feels like it is going to really upend and be a more new form of highly accessible storytelling for the masses. And then, of course, in the research space, I think we're really just beginning to kind of scratch the surface on how AI can both sort of streamline and enhance what we do. So, there's things, of course, like automation of a lot of the routine activities of data collection and data cleaning and reporting it. But then there's some really interesting things that I think are on the next frontier. One that we've been experimenting with is synthetic personas, where we'll survey real people, speak to thousands of them, and distill those into different audience profiles and train an AI model against those profiles so that you can actually have an interactive conversation like you do with ChatGPT with audience members of different cohorts, and interrogate them with new creative materials, with new posters, with new messages, with new ideas, and see how they respond. Of course, it's just trained on real people. So it's something you'd want to use for expanding your creative set, for thinking more broadly about the message you want to land or the tagline you might want to use, or to winnow down a number of choices to those that you ultimately want to put in front of real audiences and some of the more traditional methodologies. So there's just a lot of disruption and exciting opportunities in the AI space that I think are going to touch both on the content creation side as well as on the marketing and market research world that I live in.
It's so exciting for you to describe all of this, and really lots to look forward to. I especially appreciated your discussing the attention society, that it really does come down to competition for people's attention. And that's time honored, but made more difficult today because there are so many more choices. It's been wonderful to review all of this with you, a real learning experience. Thank you, Professor Grady Miller, for spending time with us on the Movie Business Podcast. Thanks so much, Grady.
Thank you. Great to be with you.